Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. And today I'm going to be talking about how I found paganism. Kind of my story into finding it. To start off, well, when I was younger, when I was really little, we didn't really, both my biological parents were still together, we really didn't go to church. We didn't have any set religious practices at all, aside from Christmas and Easter and stuff like that, and they did teach us the Christian way to do that. Now, when my parents split up, and I moved in with my dad and my stepmom, and I actually got lost from my mom for like almost 10 years, but that's a different story entirely. They began to get really into the church and Christianity and were just overtly ridiculous. Like, I couldn't read Harry Potter, I couldn't wear skirts above my knee, I couldn't listen to certain types of rock music, I just couldn't do a lot of things. My curfew was like 5 o'clock, it was ridiculous. But we started going to church, and I started teaching Sunday school, and I really bought into it for a long time. And I never really understood a lot of things about it, and I had a lot of questions, and it just sort of got pushed aside. Like, no, you can't ask about that. No, that doesn't. And some questions there just wasn't an answer for. It was just always because it's that way, or because it says so in the Bible, or because God said so, or whatever. So I was always kind of about it. I went on mission trips, I did all sorts of stuff. And eventually, through this conference called Dare to Share. I loved this conference at the time, but now that I look back about it, I'm like, really? And this conference was all about basically teaching you to be that person that goes and knocks on doors all over town, bugs the crap out of people. Would you like to learn about Jesus today? And if you say no, they just keep bugging you. Or the person on the internet that trolls pagan forums and just is constantly hammering you that you need to repent and you need to come to Jesus. Well, I became that person, unfortunately enough. And I really didn't understand what I was even doing. Because they don't teach you to respect other people's religions. They teach you that other people are going to hell no matter what religion that they are, if they're not yours. So I lost a lot of friends doing that. I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of respect from people, now that I look back on it. But what really kicked me off to starting paganism really had nothing to do with that, actually. It's a weird kind of third-party related thing. I've always been really into vampire books and movies and just vampire subculture and everything like that. I used to be gothic in high school, like kind of punk-ish. I just loved, and I still do to this day, I love vampires. Well, as I was trolling all of these different pagan forums and things like that, I come across a vampire forum, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do that, even though, but I came across a pagan woman who now I'm really good friends with. I won't say her name, but they were talking about modern vampirism, like psychic vampirism and things like that. I had no clue what it was. I was like, nah, just dumb, spouting off at the mouth like they didn't know what they were talking about. But eventually I started picking up on things. And because I started researching into psychic vampirism, now I'm not going to talk about the ethics of that in this video because that is a huge subject in paganism and Wicca. A lot of them disagree with it, a lot of them agree. I'm not even going to go into that. But I started doing a lot of research into it, and when I did, I started learning more about the metaphysical, obviously. And when I started learning more about the metaphysical, I started practicing more with seeing auras. When I was little, I used to do it a lot. I could just kind of look at somebody the right way and get a hint on their colors and things like that. But I never really, I guess I kind of suppressed it over time, and I started really doing that more. Now, of course, my stepmom and my dad thought I was nuts. But I managed to convince them that I wasn't crazy with that. Now, once I started looking more into the metaphysical, I started coming across more and more pagan and new age websites and things like that. And there was never really a definite moment where I kind of switched over. It was just a gradual thing. Like, I started becoming more and more, well, okay, maybe they're not evil. Okay, they got a point with that. They're right about that this is wrong in the Bible. They're right about the translations. They're right about this. They're right about that. And it just kind of started, the wheels started moving in my head. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. And actually, the one thing that probably kicked me off the most, well, there's two things. The first is that I got in a horrific car accident. And it really, none of us actually got hurt. But we were driving on a mountainside. And this is called Gold Camp Road in Colorado Springs. There's a whole Facebook group dedicated to the fact that so many people almost die on that road. Because in the wintertime, it's obviously like 12 feet of snow in Colorado Springs down in the valley. Now, you go up in the mountains, you're screwed. And that's pretty much it. We were in a big SUV that had four-wheel drive, and the way that you're going, there's mountain on one side of you, and there's cliff on the other side. And we were driving, and a big red truck came flying around the corner towards us. We were coming down the mountain. And we decided that, well, I didn't decide, I wasn't driving, I was in the back seat. The driver decided to swerve to avoid hitting the truck, which everybody knows you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to let go of the wheel and hit the brake. Or leave it, I don't know. But on a mountainside, you're not supposed to swerve, especially when there's a cliff. Well, they swerved. And we hit a patch of ice, and we came up on two tires like this. The only reason we did not flip is because she had a skid plate on the bottom of her truck that was like 2,000 pounds. But it bent the hell out of it. Well, we hit the ice, we lifted up on two tires, and then we hit dirt and went back down, and then we went over and hit ice again and went up. And at this point, we were leaning towards the mountainside like this. We veered off the road, and we went off the cliff. And about 2 feet down the cliff, there was a tree. And it was a huge tree. It was like 8 feet across. Well, it wasn't like 8. It was probably like 6 feet across in diameter. But it was only half of a tree. It was dead. It was a rotten stump, eaten with insects. You could poke it and like little pieces would fly off everywhere. But that tree, it was the only tree in like 45 feet that would have stopped us from rolling down that mountain and dying. We hit the tree, and we stayed where we were. It took like 4 cars. It took 2 trucks, and 2 Jeeps with winches were pulling the trucks, and they were attached to the truck just to pull us out. But anyway, that tree saved our lives. And I started really connecting with nature at that point. I was just amazed that an old, dead, poor tree could save our lives. And I started really connecting with nature at that point. And then I went on a trip to New Mexico. And I began, we went in all sorts of ceremonial kivas from the Native Americans. We looked at cliff drawings. We went inside cliff dwellings. We went everywhere. We spoke with medicine men. We spoke with shamans. We spoke with priests and priestesses. And it was amazing. And I felt something during that trip. And I went back home and I thought, well, I'm descended from these people. Maybe I'm connected to this somehow. And I started looking into the nature aspect of it and the aspects of their gods and goddesses. And it clicked. It finally clicked. And then I started, and actually, after that, I went back into every single forum that I could possibly find in my computer history. I went and I hacked into the back door of the forums that I was kicked out of and blocked through. I called people. I went back and found people from years before. I went walking down the road to people that I knocked on their doors, and I tried, at least, to apologize to every single person that I ever insulted when I was a Christian troll. Or at least I tried to. Now, I still, to this day, have never come out to my dad or my stepmom. They don't know I even have this channel. I mean, it's listed on my Facebook that I'm pagan, but I don't think they know to what extent. And I do post things about it sometimes, but they never really comment on it or anything, so I don't know. I'm not really entirely sure on that. But when I found my mother, after I had been lost from her for like 10 years, I was practicing, I wasn't practicing, I was studying paganism and Wicca and trying to figure out, what's right for me. Should I do this? Should I do that? Can I combine this? Can I not do that? Just trying to figure out everything. Turns out that for the last, probably about 6 or 7 years of that time when I was lost from my mother, she began doing the same thing. And she had acquired a bunch of books from her mother, my grandmother, when she passed away, about paganism. Go figure. Now, a lot of the books I don't necessarily agree with a lot of things in them, but some of them I do. So, turns out it's a family kind of thing, and we kind of got into it together, now that I've moved out here with her, and it's kind of funny how things work out that way. You kind of discover things on your own, and then you find out that people have been doing this for, the last who knows how many years in my family. I mean, she could have learned it from her mother. Now, I don't have any proof of that, but you never know. Different traditions have been handed down, and we're starting our own, and I really want to continue this into my children. I don't want them to be forced into, being that troll that everybody wants to punch in the face like I was. So that's how I found paganism. Kind of a weird turn of events how everything turned out. But I'm glad that it happened, and I'm glad that everything turned out the way I did, and I'm glad that I was able to at least go back and apologize to those people that I offended. And a lot of them I'm great friends with now. And we discussed paganism and everything, and I don't think they even remember, to be quite honest, that it was me that was going around trolling them, because I apologized on that one, and then I created new usernames so that people wouldn't be like, oh, don't mind her, she's a troll or whatever. But anyway, that's how I found paganism. And we'll see you next time. Blessed be.